Welcome, and this week we dig into some new projects at both our companies, discuss what makes our review process unique, and revisit a huge misunderstanding from exactly 1 year ago. Stay tuned. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Straight Shot Post Podcast. Episode number 24, I believe. Kind of crazy to think that we've done it. I guess this is like 6 months in, right? 24?
Really? So, wow.
Almost, right? Because 26 would be officially half a year, but we did skip a week because you were lazy and didn't want to do it over the break. So 25.
You didn't ask me to. Excuse me.
So 25 weeks in. So technically next week would be actually 6 months
anniversary
of doing this thing. Still nobody's watching, so that's fun because I'm betting 5 or 10 years maybe we'll see something, except for my father, who I'm sure is listening now. Thank you, Pop.
Stopped by yesterday to give us feedback on the podcast, which is awesome.
He did. Oh God, what am I doing? Okay, sorry. Nobody that's listening would see that, but apparently I touched my face a lot.
Well, today is not only my birthday, but it is also the anniversary of when I cried in the office.
Yay to the birthday.
Woo! Oh.
And
boo to the
laughing to the crying. No, it was not funny when it happened, but I think a year later we can laugh about it. Yeah, I hope so.
I think honestly, I wasn't like genuinely sad at that time.
Tell the story so
okay.
that because some people know.
Yeah. I was still part-time. Oh my God. I had gone to the
Wait, hold on. You know what? Maybe I should tell it from my perspective first. And then you can go back in time and then do your perspective.
Yeah. Okay.
So the thing is, I don't really remember. So we have like a policy here, okay? We're very pro mistakes at the company, and we're very like blunt at the company. And so we have this sort of process where it's like when a mistake happens, we must address it and say it out loud, typically. And people are recommended to feel it, so doesn't feel good. But then after feeling it for a short period, we immediately then switch and just talk about problem solving and focus away from it.
The logistics of what had happened was the night before you had recorded your other podcast, and I think the AE and the project manager didn't show up. I think that's what happened.
And then I must have said like you didn't let them know or coordinate it. But basically, all I remember is that Grace was coming into the office and I was like, I have to, because the thing with me is I move pretty quick. So if I don't address things like immediately as they happen, I'll forget about it because most of the time it's not that big of a deal. Not enough for me to like pin it, come back to it in a week. You know what I mean? So in this case, what had happened was only the night prior. And so as soon as Grace was going to come in, I was going to address the mistake like normal and talk about, make sure she felt it, talk about the solution, and then move on. And so Grace comes in, and then notably, I definitely made some mistakes here, but this 100%. But basically, like, I also move really fast. So, like, I don't even think her coat was off, like she was like...
Mind you, you never greet me at the door like that. Like, usually you're downstairs doing your own thing. And I was like, oh, why is he at the door?
Interesting. See, I'm not even looking at it from that, perspective. But basically, as soon as she comes in, it's probably like, good morning, Grace. By the way, you guys messed up big last night.
I don't even think you said good morning. But okay.
So you gotta give me some credit, girl. Something. So, yeah, your boy just kind of like went in and kind of like laid into it. Now, I've done this before, mind you guys. So, like, it's a common practice. People, it's a not... Mm-hmm. It probably sounds crazier than it is, at least, but like, it's a non-emotional practice, really. Mm-hmm. I may sound angry in the moment, but like they kind of know like we're all here to just solve the problems and fix things. But yeah, so I was just like, hey, you messed up last night. And then she just starts crying in the foyer. and immediately like, and not like her eyes teared up, like
no,
full on heaving, crying, like that kind of crying, and I just was like, oh shit. I'm trying to work on my language, but I said, oh my God, I messed up. Whoops. And was immediately like, oh, geez, are you okay? I didn't mean it like that. Like, I'm sorry. I should have, greeted you or whatever. And just like completely panicked. And then she ran downstairs to the bathroom is what I remember. And I just sat and stewed in despair. And then came up and explained to me that she wasn't necessarily crying about that. And I'll leave it there.
Yeah. Pretty good. Yeah. So what had happened was I went to the gynecologist because I had some issue, like pain. And it's like I went for a checkup and then all was fine. All went well. It was just my first time at a gyno. And then and it was an emotional experience. And then afterwards, I've talked to a lot of girls, and a lot of them have had the similar experience of it having been an emotional experience the first time they went. I don't know why. It was like I remember what you were telling me, which is well, yeah, I'll get into it. Yeah,
see,
yeah.
okay.
But like, so then anyway, so I was just like, I was emotional there, and then on my ride to the office, I was like, I'm definitely gonna cry there. But I'm going to just do it in the morning just to get out of the way. So, but I'm not going to cry in the subway because I don't want to do that. So I'm just going to save it and then like just cry when I get there. So I do that and I get to the door and then immediately Dale's like, you messed up. And then I didn't even get to say, I was going to say like, hey, I need a moment, but I didn't get to say that. And then you said you messed up. And then, okay. And then I remember coming to like here and like from the foyer into my workstation. And then I immediately started tearing up and then like crying. And then you were like, oh, are you okay? And then I was like, I am. Like, this has nothing to do with what I'm like. I understand I messed up, like, but this has nothing to do with that. I just need to go cry in the bathroom now. And then you were so confused. And then I come out and we're just like sitting right outside the bathroom and like I have like I can't even like go up the stairs. I'm just like with tissue. You gave me tissues. I'm like like so. It was so bad. And then I talked about it being like, yeah, it was kind of like one of those things where my mind was fine. My mind wasn't. It wasn't like I was like someone emotionally hurt me. It was kind of just like my body went into shock. And yeah, and that caused like an emotion.
Yeah, one other thing I remember you actually talking about though was that you also, it was like your first real like health scare. Like you were like thought maybe you had cancer or something, right? And so
yeah,
I think you were saying that the sort of almost like the relief. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm, like it was just like the tension and the anticipation of going and getting things checked out and like the kind of like relief of the good news was like just a lot. But your boy was just completely blind to it. Now she knows though, if she's like that though, she'll text me beforehand. Yeah, she'll let me know before she comes in because typically and maybe I'll even talk about it this way. It's kind of maybe one of the downsides of working from home. She's coming into an environment and she's like, I just got to work. I'm like already ready to work. I've been ready to work, Mm-hmm. And so it's not the first time I've had this, like somebody comes in and I just go because I'm not really, I'm working on it. Of course. Sometimes I'm already going. I'm like, she's in the door. Work has begun, kind of a thing. To which, for sure we're much better now. And I'm sure now I do say good morning when I'm feeling it and stuff. And, we have nice conversations before work and all of that. But lessons learned.
I still want to say, like, I was not at all offended by what happened. Like, it was completely just something else. And the timing was just awkward. I don't think I would have cried any more, any less because of that. Like, yeah, but it was funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm always pretty conscious about it. Like at that point, Grace and I had known each other like
a few months.
The communication was, it's not like I was doing that to somebody I didn't know, that we haven't had prior rapport and understanding. That's why I was so shocked. I was like, oh my God, this is like, I thought this was okay. If it wasn't okay, I don't think I would have done it, you know, like,
Yeah. And like
but it
to
was
the
just a good
level
reminder.
of my crying, it must have been so confusing. Not just like a tear, but like
It was intense. Yeah. Not unlike when you cried. Well, you didn't cry on the podcast, but shortly before, a couple months ago. So,
yeah.
hey, man, you do you, girl. I get my cries out during movies, you know? So,
Okay, cool.
enough
But yeah.
about
Enough about crying.
toxic
It's my
work culture.
birthday, so
It's
I'll
also,
be
yeah.
happy. Yeah.
I'm down to say that Grace is going to Peter Luger's
Oh
Steakhouse tonight
yeah, dude.
in Brooklyn.
So my only experience with steak is Brazilian steak, and it's funny that like I know what I like, but I couldn't tell you what it is. It's like I'm so used to the model of my dad does like churrasco, which is like they come with the big stick and they like cut meat onto your table. In Brazil, it's like some of the steakhouses here in New York, like Fogo de Chão, do it, but like the classic steakhouse model is like you have a card that's green and red on opposite sides, and if you have it on green, like they just keep coming with the steak, and then you put it on red and they stop when you're full, but and then you go green, red, red. Anyway, so yeah, I'm so used to the model of people coming with the steak and then cut it and then say what it is, and so in that model, I know exactly, like I can recognize like, oh, that's that cut, I know what I like, blah 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 in Portuguese, but like I don't know what it's called off the top of my head. But anyway, it's my first time going to an American steakhouse, so I'm excited.
I truly think it's the experience of it all. Going to those places, the craftsmanship, you know what I mean? Like the dedication to the food there. I think it's a lot of fun, and it's going to be very classic, have a classic New York type of vibe. So it's not like, you know, new modern bougie type thing. I think you're going to really enjoy it, and I don't think there's anything better on the planet than like proper steak from a steakhouse. It's going to be awesome.
Is there anything else on the table, or is it straight up just steak?
Usually you'll get sides. It's like family style.
Oh, okay.
So you'll
Like
order, you know, cream spinach.
Oh.
You can get mashed potatoes. Different places are known. They have like maybe their specialties. They'll recommend what's good side dishes for you. But yeah, you just get a couple of side dishes, but it is, you know, the star of the meal is the steak. You know,
yeah.
That's definitely the real thing.
I'm excited.
Yeah, it's an experience.
2 more hours. Yeah. Okay, cool.
So let's jump into some of the fun stuff we did this week.
This week, I feel like I've been having the spotlight because I'm talking about my crying, but this week was the least administrative week I've ever had here, and like the most I've done creative stuff. I think I've been doing reviews. I mean, okay, you talk about it actually, where our creative things for studios is at.
So we started our second company, Straight Shot Studios. For context, we split things up. So Straight Shot Post is a full service post-production company. We work with brands. We also booked some of our first jobs there. We won a yearly award creating videos for company fragrance.net, which we're excited about. They're a online perfume company, and so we'll be making and editing the videos for their in-store displays. We also booked another project, which by the time this comes out, we should be good, for The Last of Us on HBO, doing some really cool behind-the-scenes videos, a series called Creator to Creator, where we have the creators of The Last of Us, the game, and the creators of The Last of Us, the show, get in a room and have a conversation with our good friends over at Joe Greco Productions. They have been doing this series since Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. It's awesome, and so we're really excited to help them do that. And so those are 2 big projects that we've got going on the Straight Shot Post side. Separately, on the Straight Shot Studio side, we are getting towards the end of our kids book, The Adventures of Penny and Penny. And now I'm comfortable starting to talk about it now that we're actually getting there, as well as our webtoons Sidewalk. So on the kids book side, it's a series. The world is about a little Puerto Rican girl named Penelope and her pit bull, her stray that she found, pit bull puppy Penny, who's got a copper spot in his eye, hence the name Penny, and her name happens to be Penelope. And she's Puerto Rican, and she wants to be a travel blogger when she grows up, and so she's just sort of infatuated with the world and all sorts of different cultures. And the dog is very ignorant because he knows nothing but, you know, what he grew up with in the streets. And so each book they travel to a different country and meet a dog from that country, like a famous dog from that country, and then do an activity and learn a value from that country. So we had a whole bunch of different ideas for what to do. We ran a little survey with my team. It came out really cute. I'm going to say that, but I still think we picked the most boring idea or the most basic one, but it's probably the right one for like the first one, which is the dog notices Penelope eating pizza, is very curious about what pizza is. So she takes him to Italy to learn more about it. They meet a cane corso, tour Rome, and then cook with the cane corso's name is Giovanni. So they cook with Gio's owner, Marco. They learn how to make pizza and sort of learn the value of sharing a meal with friends. And I would say we've been working on it now for the past month. We use tools like ChatGPT and Midjourney to really accelerate a lot of the inspiration and development process. Wrote character descriptions in Midjourney and came up with different iterations and styles and angles for what Penelope could look like. Saved all of those, culminated those together. I used ChatGPT to help me originate a bunch of different ideas for what we could do. It was super helpful, did a lot of first drafts, and then ultimately we brought in our team to do the official drawings and write the official script, which for anyone who's interested in this stuff, our lawyer, at least at the time of this recording, AI-generated images cannot be copywritten, so we have an illustrator on staff anyways, but it's important that anyone who's thinking about doing this knows that you won't be able to copyright it if you don't have a human drawing it. So we use a lot of initial inspiration from the AI generator, and then it had our illustrator come in and actually do the drawings. What ended up happening is it was an awesome process, I thought. We have a fun team, and we get very ruthless and very dedicated, put in a tremendous amount of effort in these review sessions, picking apart illustrations, picking apart word choices and dialogue. I dragged my high school homegirl, Kimberly Bliss, into this because she's a certified mom, I guess. She's got 2 kids. She's an English literature master's and volunteered to edit the book for us. She's at home on maternity right now. So it was good timing. She's been an awesome help. Also brought some great details and ideas and made sure it's grammatically correct. So that helps. And all together, it felt like a real team effort to sort of get this thing together. What I think is amazing is we have something that we can run if people are interested in it, and it takes us about a month to make it from start to finish, which I think is very impressive. I assume, at least for me, it feels like really efficient. So far, I feel really good about the work that we're doing. It's actually like fun to read. So there was a lot of that going on. And Grace was involved in a lot of those meetings. I like to make sure there's a diverse group. Again, a lot of our inspiration for how we do reviews and stuff like that stems from Pixar, and our own core values. So honesty, transparency is a core value, empathy is a core value, effort's a core value. So when we do these reviews, brains on, everybody needs to be attentive, and we go hard, really hard. But it usually ends up being very fruitful. And so we then took that practice over to our webtoon. So now that we're wrapping up the kids' book, we're starting to work on the webtoon, which has been quite an experience, to say the least. But if you wanted to talk on the kids' book before we jump into that, feel free, Grace.
Before you jump into sidewalks?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the kids' book. Well, actually, that was when we reviewed it. I had been seeing it like in passing, but I never really paid attention to it. So this week when we went through every single page in depth, I think it was the first time that I got to, first time I got to participate in a review where I like fully, that was my focus and I didn't think about anything else because usually I'm dealing with other stuff. So that was like, I got to turn on a different part of my brain. And so it was a lot of fun and having that diverse set of opinions. I remember, I can't get over you talking about guada. There's this one page where the chef, this chef in Italy is like open arms. It's like, welcome to like my restaurant, And then Guada had been quiet like the whole review. And then she just pops in. She's like, like, I don't like the shot. Like, I feel weird that his hands aren't in the shot. Can we do something about it? And it was so funny and random, but like, showed how awesome it is to have a diverse set of eyes on it, and it was a lot of fun. I loved it. I loved going that deep.
Yeah, right. It was the shot that I for sure thought no one was going to have anything to say about, you know? There's like a lot, you know, and I thought, yeah, and then we solved her problem with it. I understand what she was saying. Yeah. So ultimately, it was extremely fruitful work that we had to do on the ending. I mean, we basically rewrote half of it, you know? And I really do like the process that we're kind of developing because it's fluid. I really do think just like really, it feels really sharp and tight when we finish, you know? And you know that there was no stone left unturned, you know? So like when I let that book out, when I let it go, I'm letting it go, man. Cause I'm sure there's going to be a million things when it's done that we realize, damn, we should have done this or that. But all I can say is that while we're working on it, we're giving it our best. And that's really important for me as a creator to feel, okay, I gave this my best. Now I can learn from it and make the next one better. So yeah, effort first. Then we are now in development with Sidewalks, which is a slice of life romantic comedy about a young boy, currently working on the name. It's either going to be Cisco or Luke. But I'm just going to say it. It's based on, you know, a ridiculous true story from my real life. A cringeworthy true story from my real life. I guess we should run with that. But basically, when I was in college, I was madly in love with this incredible young lady. And over the summer, between 2 college years, she dumped me. And I did not accept that because I thought that something had happened. I didn't think she was dumping me because she didn't like love me anymore, you know? And so I didn't accept it. And I packed up all my bags and traveled all the way to see her. And I'm in Long Island and she was in New Jersey. So not the farthest thing, but also I've never been to New Jersey.
You hadn't before that?
Not like to spend time, you know? I've driven through it. Oh. Maybe been to like a house from a family member. Knew nothing about it at all. The Meadowlands, you know, that's about it. Yeah, and kind of entered this foreign, very different than my life, foreign sort of suburban land where the streets have no sidewalks, hence the title Sidewalks.
That's so funny. We were actually talking about that yesterday because my friend has a New Year's resolution to run every day, but she lives in Jersey and she gave up on that because she's like, there's no sidewalks. I can't run.
Yes. See, I'm just saying it's definitely, you know, everybody's like, I don't see why that's it was such a memorable thing for me. Anyway, so I go through all of this. I travel all the way over there only to find out that she's working every day and I get stuck spending the week with her family, to which she has an incredible family. And it was a very moving experience for me, even though it didn't necessarily pan out the way that I had hoped. And so we took that and we adapted it to a very similar storyline, except that the girl isn't there at all. And it's kind of a mystery as to where she's gone. And our main character gets stuck having to win over each member of her family in hopes that that'll help him get the girl back when she does get home. And we're having a good time doing it, you know?
Because we've been reviewing it every different episode every day this week. And I'm curious, you were saying how you were nervous about going into reviews for it because it is something so personal and writing is not your thing. And so for anyone like reviewing your material, that's nerve-wracking. But how has it been? Like, it's just as nerve-wracking as you said it is, or like not nerve-wracking, but yeah, just like,
well, ouchie. I mean, I did set some stuff I did say at the top for people to be a little bit more sensitive than normal, right? I think. Although I think people have been just as honest and dedicated to making sure it's as good as it can be. And then when you ask how has it been, I mean, I guess ironically, the day that we were working on the opening episode, which is the main character getting dumped and beginning his journey, I literally got dumped. That happened like 2 hours after that meeting. So I was already in a weird place, kind of digging deep into those memories. And then in real life, it happened. So I'm okay. I'm working on my process of recovery, but it's not fun. But I think that kind of put an interesting spin just on the week when reviewing it. But I would say overall, like, honestly, I think what's so awesome, beautiful, amazing, I don't know what you want to call it, is that I'm so obsessed with the work that, like, it just becomes work. And so when those reviews start, in the beginning, I'm nervous and I might be thinking things. But the moment that somebody starts, I don't know, you know, the blinders come on, the gears switch, and all of a sudden I'm it's like the muscle memory of it all, right? It's just so deeply ingrained in me to problem solve and think and push and ask and it's honestly, it's like, it's where I'm best. It's where I should be. And I know that as we conquer episode to episode, when we're wrapping it up, everybody's like, this is a banger episode. Like as in, like, it's the best it can be. And I'll even touch on how, like, in the third episode that we reviewed yesterday, it's not an action-packed episode. It's a very sort of slower, more character-developed episode. But the team, we had lengthy conversations about it. And the team, I think, rightfully recognizing we've earned it, hopefully, with the sort of goodwill we've built over the first 2 episodes, and that we did it tastefully, that it will hopefully touch a more emotional core. That yesterday might have been my favorite one because of that. Because I knew going in, man, if we're going to lose, at least for me, if I'm going to lose my team, it's going to be on this one. Because I went in sort of a different
direction.
Yeah, and the first note was, well, this has a bit of a different tone than the first 2. And immediately I was just like, oh, man. And then they were like, no, we can make this work, you know? And that got me excited.
Yeah.
So it's been a very mixed set of emotions. Obviously, I'm tapping into things from my own past, and also sort of really workshopping that against my own current emotions and what I'm dealing with. But it doesn't make me sad working on it.
That's good. Okay.
Yeah. Mainly because as I'm working on it, I just can't help but think about people reading it and what they're going to experience. And you guys are my first taste, you know? So whenever our producer grimaces, I'm like, yes, if that's what I was looking for. Cause whenever there is something cringe, oh boy, she cannot
also,
hide
her
it on her
grimace
face.
Is the best. Like, I look for it.
Yeah.
Constantly.
Yeah. She's very expressive. So, you know, it's kind of that. It's like, okay, so if I get that face, that means that if I was trying to get it, if she makes that face when it's not supposed to be, I'm like, all right, we need to change the line or look at the scene or something. And so we were able to develop rules around the story in that manner. Our illustrator's thoughtful. He doesn't jump in on everything, but when he has something to say, he will. He talks about it from a visual perspective. I can see the wheels turning there. And then you have Guadalupe, I call her Lupe, our writer, who is really, she's like our copywriter for the team, writes our YouTube, and she'll write blog posts and stuff. And her perspective is one that I value because she's the one who knows the most about the platform webtoons. So she can compare it to what she's reading and see if she thinks it's a good fit. She also will, you know, just like everybody else, interject where she thinks is appropriate. And now I would say the first episode, we spent so much time digging in to the tone and the characters that it's getting a little bit easier from episode to episode for people to feel if we're right. You know what I mean? It's like, oh no, this sounds like Luke, you know, you know, like that's starting to happen.
It's such an exciting feeling, like to get, for me personally, at least, like attaching to these characters and hearing them live and knowing what they would do or not do. It's fun.
I'll also say, like, we keep it light because basically we're poking fun at me the whole time, you know, essentially, you know, so.
Yeah.
So I think that really does help, obviously, as like the sort of the boss and, you know, the creative leader, that if I'm willing to throw a punch at me, now they feel like they can too, which is needed. You know what I mean? Ultimately, ultimately what I say is gonna go. So I don't ever feel like I'm at risk of losing what I strongly believe in, you know? And I would say, I mean, if you look back, every single member has had a contributing change that made it better, which is more than I could have asked for at this level with your guys' level of experience and stuff like that. And even Grace, you've been coming in, bringing the heat. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was thinking, I actually wanted to ask you because we were talking about this, and I've had a lot of fun in the reviews. because I feel like it's been reinforced that here in this company that, you know, like the ideas are say your idea, get in trouble if you don't say your idea. So it's pushed me to like not care if my idea is doo-doo or if it's good or bad, I just say it. And it's not something that I've often found outside of here, because usually I feel like there's a hierarchy or there's, you know, like I've learned not to really say my opinion. Some instances I feel safe too, but like sometimes I don't. And you were saying how like, how are you going to learn if you don't push yourself to share your thoughts? And then I was saying how, because I don't know what I like, you know, like I just graduated college, and if I go out to do something, even if I go out to do something that I studied for, let alone things I didn't study for, like I don't know what I'm doing. And so I was like, I should just keep my mouth shut and just like watch and learn. And then you like disagreed, but like, I don't know, then how do you go about doing it? Because like,
I mean, well, you're it's called imposter syndrome, Grace, right? Like,
no, but like I literally don't know what I'm doing. Like,
but you know more than you think you do. That's like a mentality. You've sat with me for 2 years. There's no way you didn't learn anything, right?
I mean, yeah, but like
about story.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, but like my baseline for story was like in the negative, because story was always my weakest point.
In your opinion, but you know, like you have to understand, like
in the opinions of my teachers, man.
Like we're so predicated on our process here. Yeah, but look what you've been doing. Like that's what I'm trying to say. It's like the game, if you're asking the right questions, it's a game of critical thinking, and it's a game of actually thinking and thinking different things and thinking differently. And I'll bring up, you know, a great solution. We were working on the opening scene, which just had a wall of text, you know, one of those really classic, boring expositional scenes. Oh, this is me. I like to draw and I love the girl. And I was like, this scene is so bad. And I already knew it was bad, but I was like, you know, here's my rule of thumb is, all right, well, if it's bad, then get it all done. Like, you know, like medicine, take the medicine all at once and then get past it. And so that's what I had done. That doesn't stop it from being a bad part. But I was like, if there's going to be a bad part, let's just minimize it. And sometimes you have to do that, right? But Grace was the one that came up with the solution that worked brilliantly. And it was simply because you were thinking about different options that we even had to do it. And that's the whole point. Like, I'm not going to be able to think of everything, or I might not be thinking about it then, or I might just be blinded by how much I hated that part that I couldn't see a way out. So this is where it's like assumed, right, that I couldn't be wrong. Then you never or like anything, you never would have even allowed yourself to come up with the thought.
That's a good point. Because I feel like you've trained here, like, it's okay to, like, assume that everyone's wrong. No one's ever, like, always right. And I feel like that's something that I'm
not God. How many times have you heard me say that? I'm not God, guys.
Yeah, and you make mistakes. I feel like, that's because, you know, coming from a school environment and also just, like, strict parents, I guess, always thinking that the person above me who has more experience is correct. So I feel like that's just become my default when I leave here. Like everything else I do outside of here, it's like, no, I don't know anything, but they know everything. And so I guess
which is not true. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's like you're sitting there going, no, there's a difference between saying mentally, okay, I have less experience. I've only been studying this 2 years. This is where I think I am. This is where I think I can be, versus I don't know anything. I'm wrong about everything. Right.
That's
so
true.
Yeah. So to me, it's like, that's why when we talk about it here, I'm like, you must say your ideas because you must learn good taste. You need to know where they stand within our standard. But the thing is, we also have like rules and like a framework so that at least, because the other part is you could say your idea, and if somebody just said you're wrong, you're still going to be like, okay, so I'm wrong, but I don't really know why. I don't know how to apply that to the future either. And the reality is you're not always wrong. Like that, your suggestion may be wrong this time in this particular case. And people seem to neglect that too. That like what we're doing here, when you're telling stories, the variance is so incredible from scenario to scenario that the decisions that you're making can be so vast and still work. Again, I'll go back to Everything Everywhere All at Once. I'm sure if I said what that movie was about to you on paper, you'd say that movie sucks. It's ridiculous. You watch it and it's brilliant, right? So this is kind of where I go when it comes to story. And that's why it's so important that it's like the different perspectives are critical. And you hear this in other businesses too. It's not even just here, but we are very pro having an opinion. And at the same time, because we're all about dualities here, we're also aware that our opinions do matter very little kind of in totality. So you then learn with that mindset, use whatever you're building as far as instincts and skill to have that opinion, and then also be able to verify it like actually accurately. But if you don't ever have the opinion and then there's nothing to verify and then there's no way to grow or learn. Right? And what I'm saying to you is by virtue of sitting and watching me have done this time and time again, and also have witnessed the results that will occur as we break down and update scripts and client projects. You know, if you think back to doing Famine, the short film that, by the way, I guess when this comes out, I'll maybe be able to announce it. So if it's not March 2nd, you can't say this technically. And if it is March 2nd, you can. But it got into Cleveland International Film Festival. This short film we did called Famine, that was a film that required lots of time and effort.
How to meal prep for
how to meal prep for a famine, right? It's a slow burn horror. And then you've got another short film we did, Portraits, that had a kind of a big transformation throughout. You see me do it time and time again with client work. We'll look at the opening of the Loyola Hospital, 30-second spot video, which is probably going to be up on our website by the time we talk about this, where, you know, the opening of that video showcases a helicopter flying a patient into a hospital, and they never flew a patient into that hospital. We just edited it so you would feel that. Yes. Yeah. Which was not something that the editor saw, but that I did. And I think you have seen me time and time again ask questions, look for solutions, that you're completely capable of doing that. At its essence, that's what it's going to take. So that's kind of the way I look at it. We're talking about making decisions. We're talking about just using your brain and keeping it simple.
I feel like, though,
you know,
here in this environment, we've broken it down to be that simple, where it's just like, okay, we're open to just like, here's the floor, just throw your idea and like, we'll work with it. But I feel like, and also because we've established like a common language and how we all communicate here. But like when I go outside into the outside world, it's different. I mean, it's different. Like, so then learning the communication and what kind of, how conveying that solution, even if I get a solution idea, like how to communicate that becomes the challenge.
Of course, but that's the hard part. That's the empathy part, which is where I'm always telling people, like, you think you're good, you're not good enough, for sure. Being able to actually 100%. Being able to actually communicate effectively so that somebody else really, it reaches them, is very skill intensive. It is hard.
I forget that I like am pretty terrible communicator, and I feel so comfy here because I like the communication here. But yeah, growing up, my mom was always like, you're lacking words, you need to add more words, people don't get what you're saying, and it just comes off blunt. So yeah,
well, now it's just fast. We get to go faster than everybody else, which is nice, but it doesn't, it's again, it's very not indicative of the real world. So it's just been, it has been, I guess for me, you know, one thing you got to recognize, Grace, is you're talking about, this is my 14th or so, 15th year, you know, professionally telling stories in some capacity. And I know the traps. I have made the mistakes. I've closed my mind in the past. You know what I'm saying? And so the freight, what you see, what we've built here, is essentially like, it's the checks and balances to make sure that the best ideas make it, and that I don't get caught up. This is my own story about my own, you know, experience essentially. And, you know, you'll see me also get in there, but I'm inspired when other people can throw something away, you know, but it's a big double check. Like I'll just throw out like the whole junior's cheesecake thing. Like I like it. I actually think it's a little ridiculous when I see when I can verify and other people like, no, this is working because I don't know it at all, but it's connecting with me. Then that's a good sign. And that's what I'm saying. I'm not just like in a bubble with it. I'm testing it against real people who would like it, people who wouldn't like it. Do you know what I mean? Like really trying to make sure that it holds up to our standards, which again, we have clear like kind of rules for it. Is it clear? And does it have the right emotional impact? So I'm really personally extremely curious about how this is going to pan out. This is me actually, building the company was me testing my ideas in some manner. Hey, is how I edit going to be something I can teach, translate, and actually build and get new clients with? Will those clients like the way we do things, right? And now it's this other challenge that I'm excited to take on of like, well, will the people like the way that we do it, you know? They're not going to see how, but like obviously the end product is only there because of the work we put into it. So that's the part I'm terrified and excited for, you know? But yeah, what you guys, you know, if you're listening, we're probably going to be starting to talk a lot more about these kinds of things. I think getting deep, probably breaking down certain, either, you know, roadblocks or road bumps that we had on this stuff. Cause that's kind of what I want to be able to keep in our little, time capsule here is like, how did we get through and overcome a lot of these story struggles? It's not easy. Like these meetings can be brutal, you know, but it's like, it's just so who we are. I guess that's why, because I've been texting her throughout the week about like, whenever I'm pumped in these meetings, I'm like, dude, this is my happy place. People are yelling at each other. I'm like, this is my happy place because I know we're getting somewhere. You know what I mean?
I don't think we've not been yelling at each other.
Yeah, I know, I exaggerated. Okay. But like when there's like that debate and people are like, well, I don't know about that, or I kind of disagree with that, or like, you know, for example, like this is just cringe. It's not funny cringe, right? Like, yeah. And we're like, you know, and I'm like, that was my favorite line, guys. You know, like I'm in it too. I'm like, all right, what else? What other line? How about this? How about that? How about this? How about that? You know, do we have any pro tips this week? I mean, I can give a generic one too.
Okay.
Here's a pro tip for the week here. And it comes from our puzzle piece system. So always do 2 passes for every part of your creative process. So when we talk about it in editing, we're always big on this. That first, and you're separating it. So it's story first always. And you want to stay really broad and really loose. And you want to go really fast so you don't have too much time to overthink it. And you want to get all the core beats down. Clarity, clarity, clarity. That should be the only thing in your head. And you go fast. Okay? And you just vomit out your first pass. Only for story. And when you're done, you're like, every piece of the story is crystal clear. Then you go ahead and you approach the second pass. And that is when you go hard. And that's when you kind of do a version of these review meetings, right?
Yeah.
And you ask every shot, every beat, is this correct? Is this the one that's going to make them laugh? Is this going to make them cry? You know what I mean? And then you go hard on yourself. Okay? That's the pro tip that I have.
And also, I like the pro tip that you've had where when you're doing your first pass and you can't figure out the dialogue, you just put an X. And then move forward and then come back to it when you come back to it with a new lens. Yeah, for writing. So you put an X if you can't figure out what they're saying. You continue and keep writing. And then you come back with a different lens. And then I feel like the dialogue has been so much easier to write.
100%. Yeah. I think it's like, I don't know, for me, well, I'm bad at multitasking, right? And so it's like, which by the way, I say that almost facetiously, we're all bad at multitasking. Our brains are not built for it.
Yeah.
Just so you know, if you think you're good at it, like it don't matter if you think you're good at it.
I'm so passionate about that. Ever since I found out that, like,
yeah, we're not built for it.
That we're not built for it, and people are always multitasking. I'm like, no, stop. Anyway,
we'll give that as a pro tip too, which is, you know, the best way to multitask is to not multitask, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's ironic.
hey Heather,
like
that's a
full
good
job,
one, by the way.
but-
That's a good one for pro tip, that because our producer's running out. That's a good one. The best way to multitask is not to multitask. So essentially, yeah, what Grace is talking about here is when I'm writing, I struggle so much. I hate it. It's not fun. It's painful, but I got to do what I got to do right now. And when my brain struggles to like really dig into certain moments and details, I'll know that there has to be a scene about something. But then when I have to actually like write the dialogue for that scene and trying to make it authentic and true to the characters, all this and that, it just is so daunting that I freeze up. What happens is I'm trying to keep the flow natural. So we'll put on alpha waves music. And yeah, we got to separate these, man. This is too much value
This
for
is a
one
lot.
episode.
Yeah.
So I'll hammer down, and I just want the goal is to keep that steady pace and flow, and I will run through the script, and if that gets stuck anywhere, I'll leave an X, and usually it's in dialogue, and so I'll kind of line out what happens in the scene, step away for a day, come back with fresh eyes, and then focus just on that thing, and usually it's a lot easier. It's a bit of a different flow, so kind of how I do it in writing. And how I would do in editing. And what I would say is critical about this is if you're putting in that level of effort and then you go to do a review, you've either predicted most of it already because you empathetically dove deep, and or the people that you're working with are so good that they're going to catch even more. And so basically you just level up the piece to a place like it just could not possibly be if it was just done in a single pass. And there's that. I'm definitely going to give the writing one again because I want to kind of talk more about that as I dig it deep and learn more.
I lost my cards.
Question of the week.
I mean,
Now that you've been doing voiceover, how would you describe your own voice?
Oh! This is day one of acting school.
Really?
Yeah, we literally sat down with crayons and a paper, and they're like, draw your voice, like a whole class on like how you perceive your voice. But
like your actual like how you hear yourself.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Well, it was open to interpretation. I did it how I hear myself. Some other people are like how I show up to the world. But I always described mine as like as a visual. I remember this, like I drew like a blue circle. I'm very visual with voices. I will like hear other people's voices and be like, you sound like water streaming down a tube, or like you sound like like honey on a table or something, you know? But mine was like blue circle with like pink spikes on the outside. That's how I described my voice. Like I mean, is anyone really a fan of their voice?
I
don't know.
mine.
Like I'm not a fan of my voice. You know, it's actually not my
I don't know though,
voice.
but like we have this intern here, Liam. He knows he's got a cool
No,
voice.
those people,
You
like,
know what I mean?
Like what's his name? What's that
Morgan
dude's name
Freeman,
from
right?
Arrested
Like-
Development? Will Arnett, like that kind of
Oh,
voice.
yeah,
I'm sure
yeah.
everyone's like, yeah, I got the voice. But I mean,
Yeah.
the rest of us, I don't know. But I don't. Okay, I realize it's not so much my voice, like the frequency it produces from my vocal cords. It's my diction that I hate. Like, I hate the way it's so specific, but I don't like, I feel like I sound like my mouth should be bigger, or that I should be like enunciating more, but I'm not, and I just sound lazy. I feel like that's how I feel about it. So like the voice itself, like my I'm like, it's fine, but yeah, that's how I feel.
That was a way better answer than I thought.
Cool.
Love it.
Anyway, also my S's I'm very insecure about. That I picked up in acting school, that like my S's are too hard. Like I go, because I had retainers for a long time, and so my S's got harder to compensate, and once the retainers came off, my S's are hard. Anyway,
That acting school.
some people say it's
trauma.
a Jersey thing, but yeah, if you had to do an entry level job like this, like Yeah, like you had
this
to.
all falls apart and I have to start over again.
Yeah, you have to start over, and like as if like you don't have the experience that you.
I assume not
have.
in this field.
Yeah, not in this field, because I feel like
I would just start again in this field and climb up real fast. And then
right? Exactly. So like not in this field. All right. Thanks for building my question. I was thinking like hypothetically, if you were born and like didn't get an education and you just like went into the work field, like what would you like? But you can do that. What you said.
It's tough, right, when you ask those kinds of questions, because it's like, essentially, it doesn't matter what I do, because equipped with the knowledge that I currently have, I think I'd end up in the same place, right? So what I would be picking is an entry-level position that allowed me to excel with the least amount of time spent in it and effort.
Which would be...
Well, I don't have an answer, but like if it's like I went broke and I needed money, I would be like, what's the thing that I could make X minimum that I needed that required the least amount of like brain power and, and time, so that I could just outthink or outpace. Like, I don't know, it's probably something that would be digital. So like, for example, right, no manual labor where I actually physically have to pick stuff up and move stuff because I cannot do anything else.
Interesting, because manual labor is like the ultimate not using
your brain.
I mean, I don't want to say that because I know that you still use your brain, but like in a different way. It's a different way.
But I know what you're trying to say, as in it requires the least amount of like mental energy to just like pick up and move a couch or whatever. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, it takes such a toll on your body, and you physically have to be in that place. Like, let's say you were a mover. Well, if you wanted to start a second company and you're literally lifting and heavy shit for 8 hours, you got to come home and muster up that energy to do it. Which, respect for people who do. But if I'm going to be picking an entry-level job, it's going to be like, yeah, give me something to punch into a spreadsheet that I can somehow like automate and, make sure that they get what they need, but that buys me enough time for me to do what I need to do to get back where I need to get, or whatever it was. I'd be looking for stuff like that. So it'd have to be digital. It'd have to be a work from home thing. I'd be looking for stuff like that. No, again, I'd be trying to be as efficient as possible. So if there was a job I could do from my computer at home, hit the quotas, make the company happy, but also give me as much time and brain space as possible, that's the kind of stuff I'd be looking for.
I cannot imagine you as an employee. I just like try to
Me neither.
It. So odd. Okay.
But that's what I think it would be. So something administrative, something that, just required low amount of time. But that's because I think that I'd be like, I'd be trying to figure something out,
Start another company?
Yeah, it would not be bartending. Just to be clear, it wouldn't be bartending or any of those things. No food industries. I suck at that so much. Gives me so much anxiety. Stuff like that. Nothing that's known for inefficiency or incompetence. That's why I'd rather just work at home, because I'd go nuts watching other people suck and not be able to say anything about it. It'd be something like that, I guess. I don't even know what it would be. Maybe I'll just trade stocks or something. Crypto. There you go.
Okay. Cool.
Oh, God. Who knows, man, right? That's certainly one that's got me thinking. All right. If you guys have any questions for us, go ahead and feel free to let us know. Grace certainly needs the help. Yeah, and with that said, everybody who's watching, please work hard, be nice, and keep changing. Thank you for listening to another episode. Have a good one.